Have you ever noticed how almost all the advice around navigating your career right now or, looking for a job, it all relies heavily on this concept of just pure brute force.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's all about exertion.
Right. It feels like you're handed this really blunt axe and someone just points to the largest tree in the forest and says, just start swinging.
And swing harder if it's not falling.
Exactly. I mean, you're told to send out 500 applications, right? You spend your entire weekend tailoring these bespoke cover letters to companies that, let's be honest, will probably never even read them.
Yeah, they're going straight into a void.
And you're attending every single networking event in your city. It's just the underlying expectation is always exertion. Like, if you aren't seeing results, the default diagnosis from everyone is just that you aren't busy enough.
Yeah.
You need to hustle harder.
Hustle culture, yeah. The entire culture of career advancement has historically been entirely exertion-based. We basically evaluate professional dedication through this sheer test of endurance.
Yeah.
But, and this is the core of what we're talking about today, that framework is actively collapsing. I mean, it's breaking down.
Because of AI.
Exactly. As artificial intelligence fundamentally alters, modern recruitment and daily workflows, relying on manual exertion is no longer this badge of honor. In fact, it's actually becoming a huge liability.
Wow. A liability.
The modern workplace is completely rewiring how it measures value.
So if you're still relying on that blunt axe we talked about, you're basically just going to exhaust yourself, right? While the whole forest around you gets harvested by these automated, highly efficient machines.
That's a great way to put it. You're sweating while the machine does the work in seconds.
Right. And for anyone, anyone navigating this transition, the sheer speed of this change can feel incredibly disorienting. I mean, we're looking at an environment where the old rules of busyness equals progress are just actively failing.
Which is the perfect catalyst for our deep dive today. We are exploring a fascinating approach to this exact problem. And it's drawn from this really incredible stack of highly confidential internal source documents.
Yeah, these are wild.
They are. We have campaign Bibles, content architecture plans, and operational playbooks belonging to an entity known as BAIR. BAIR.
Which stands for Brehon AI Recruitment.
Exactly.
And what makes these documents so compelling, at least to me, is their intended audience.
Right.
These were not written for public consumption.
No, not at all.
This isn't marketing collateral. They are internal guardrails. They serve as the absolute foundational blueprints dictating how this cutting-edge AI recruitment firm actually builds its technology.
How they train their models, how they interact with candidates, all of it.
Right.
And our objective for this deep dive is to take those corporate philosophies embedded in these pages, principles on systems thinking, algorithmic governance, all that stuff.
The heavy tech stuff.
Yeah, the heavy stuff. And we want to translate that into a personal, highly actionable, upskilling path for you, the listener.
Because as a modern professional, you're facing this AI-driven landscape, whether you like it or not.
Right. You have to understand the mechanisms that are judging you.
Yeah.
And beyond that, you need to learn how to govern these systems to make your own value just completely undeniable.
Okay, but before we jump into the actual mechanics of it all, we really need to establish the baseline tone of these documents.
Oh, tone is so important.
It really is. A mandate explicitly repeated across all these internal playbooks is the strict necessity of and I'm quoting here, a palm mentor approach.
Palm mentor, yeah. I love that phrasing.
Right. They are actively avoiding the typical AI hype cycle. There's no panic here about robots taking our jobs.
No sci-fi doom-mongering.
Exactly. No frantic calls to action. The focus is entirely on quiet authority, clear standards, and actionable intelligence.
And to truly grasp that concept of, quiet authority, we have to look at the visual and psychological interface they've constructed to deliver it.
Yeah.
We need to examine the actual persona of Brehon AI recruitment.
We have to talk about the BAIR.
We have to talk about the cover and BAIR, yeah.
Okay, so I have the character Bible open right now, and I have to say the visual design specs are incredibly specific, shockingly specific.
Down to the stitching.
Literally. So Burai is an anthropomorphic brown bear, but let's be clear, he is far from some cartoonish mascot.
No, he's not Smokey or Yogi.
Right. He is described as broad-shouldered, upright, and completely composed. And his default attire, this is my favorite part, is a premium black athletic tracksuit.
Yes.
Specifically, it's a zip hoodie featuring a gold shield crest with a bear head emblem on it.
And the texture notes.
Oh my gosh, yes. The playbook emphasizes knitted brow mesh, and it says his eyes are highly expressive but restrained. Plus, he wears these clean, white-soled sneakers.
Which is such a deliberate aesthetic choice. It
Yeah.
leans so heavily into this premium athleisure space rather than, corporate rigidity or something purely animated and
It
playful.
projects readiness.
Exactly. A very specific type of readiness.
Mhm.
Athletic, but composed.
But then, if the context shifts to an executive interaction, the playbook notes that he transitions into a tailored navy suit with a tie.
Right. He adapts to the room.
But perhaps the most interesting detail to me is his environment. Like, he doesn't operate out of a sleek, glass-walled tech office in Silicon Valley.
No, not at all.
He operates from a woodland executive lodge. And this lodge exists as the front-facing layer of this massive, complex digital ecosystem that they call Davidos.
We should probably break down what Davidos actually represents because it's crucial to understanding the whole architecture.
Yeah, let's unpack that.
So Davidos isn't just a website. It is the comprehensive, data-driven operating system that powers literally all of Brehon AI's back-end functions.
Right.
It handles the candidate parsing, the risk assessments, the regulatory compliance checks, the matching algorithms. It's this massive, highly technical infrastructure.
So you have this incredibly dense, potentially intimidating algorithmic engine, and the interface they choose to place on top of it all is a bear in a tracksuit living in a forest.
Right.
I mean, why? Why construct this elaborate woodland metaphor for a hyper-advanced AI?
It's a deliberate exercise in psychological design. I mean, think about what AI recruitment represents to the average person.
It's terrifying.
Exactly. It represents this cold, opaque void. It's algorithms scanning your life's work, parsing your data, and making these high-stakes risk assessments about your livelihood.
Without ever even speaking to you.
Right. And that naturally induces a profound sense of vulnerability, makes you defensive.
For sure.
So BAIR serves as this human-friendly interface. He's designed to make intense, high-stakes AI governance feel approachable, but without stripping away the gravity of the process.
The internal documents actually define him as the, let me find it, steward of standards, builder of systems, protector of trust.
That's a heavy title for a bear.
It really is. And the character direction notes his bearing should always feature arms crossed, steady gaze, quiet authority.
Notice how they explicitly mandate that emotion must be injected sparingly.
Right. Under a motive.
Very deliberately under a motive. They want to ensure that any warmth he displays feels earned, like it's sincere and grounded, not just programmed customer service cheerfulness.
Yeah, by utilizing a forest setting, they're invoking an environment that is naturally patient. It's rooted. It operates on natural seasons.
It inherently slows the user's heart rate down.
Which makes sense, because when you're anxious about your career, throwing neon tech graphics and flashing notification bells at you only heightens that anxiety.
Oh, it spikes it. The lodge environment grounds the entire experience.
It paints a very clear picture. But, putting myself in the shoes of a candidate, it is still a bit surreal. Well, my guide through this hyper-advanced AI hiring ecosystem is essentially a stoic bear dressed like a high-level European football manager who lives off the grid.
That's incredibly accurate.
Right. It reminds me of that classic trope in martial arts cinema.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
Yeah. You seek out the legendary master to learn how to fight, but instead of teaching you how to punch, what does he do?
He makes you carry buckets of water.
Exactly. You're carrying buckets of water up a steep mountain for 6 months before you ever throw a single punch.
That parallel highlights the exact psychological reset they're aiming for. The master sets a standard of discipline and mindset long before handing over the actual technique.
Okay, that makes sense.
And we see this manifested in how BAIR is scripted to greet visitors at the lodge. The dialogue prompt in the playbook doesn't ask for a resume upload right away.
Right. There's no big click here to apply banner.
No. He asks, what brings you to the woods today? Looking for work? Looking for talent? Learning or exploring?
Wow. That immediately diffuses the transactional tension.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. It forces you to pause. You actually have to articulate your intent rather than just clicking a rapid-fire apply now button on 50 different listings.
It demands a deliberate, unhurried pace. And for anyone listening to this who is currently navigating the job market or maybe trying to secure a promotion, the immediate application here is to internalize that calm, under-pressure energy.
Channel the bear.
Channel the bear. Because if you are caught in that panic of sending out dozens of generic applications a day, BAIR's framework would diagnose that as a severe misallocation of your energy.
A total waste.
Yeah. Your career trajectory shouldn't be a frantic scramble.
Yeah.
It should resemble a deliberate walk into the woods with a clearly defined purpose.
I love that. And that concept of a deliberate walk brings us directly to what the source documents refer to as the core doctrine.
The heavy-hitting stuff.
Yeah, because if we're setting aside the frantic scramble, right, and we're accepting this mandate to carry water up the mountain first, we need to know what the actual lesson is. What are we learning?
We're learning a fundamental rewiring of how we view our daily output.
Let's get into the axioms. So the foundational rules governing the entire Brehon AI group are laid out in this series of axioms.
And to be clear, these aren't just motivational posters on a wall. They are literal operational constraints for their tech and their people.
The very first one listed, highlighted as BAIR's first axiom, states, and I'll read it, effort does not scale, systems scale.
Let's really examine the mechanics of that statement.
Yeah.
Effort does not scale, systems scale. The playbook actually expands on this by contrasting two different mindsets.
Right, the founder versus the CEO.
Exactly. It says a founder asks, what should I do today? But a CEO asks, what system should exist so this never requires me again?
That is such a huge shift.
Yeah.
And immediately following that is their final rule, which I feel is incredibly relevant to anyone suffering from professional burnout right now.
Oh, absolutely. Read that one.
It reads, hope is not a strategy, effort is not leverage, busyness is not progress, revenue is not value.
That hits hard.
It really does. And then the text clearly defines what they actually consider to be value. It says, infrastructure is value, doctrine is value, distribution is value, trust is value, everything else is noise.
Everything else is noise.
But I want to challenge this for a second, just from the perspective of an everyday professional.
Sure, pushback.
Because these axioms, they're clearly written from a high-level executive mindset, right?
They are.
So how does a mid-level manager or, someone just trying to break into a totally new industry actually apply this? Because my entire working life, I've been conditioned to believe that busyness is the ultimate signal of dedication.
Right. Look how hard I'm working.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If my boss sees me frantically typing at my desk for 9 hours straight, I'm considered a hard worker. If I somehow automate my job so it only takes 2 hours, I'm terrified I'll be seen as lazy or worse, redundant.
That fear is the exact friction point of this entire paradigm shift.
Yeah.
We have to separate the concept of hard work from the concept of waste.
Okay, unpack that. Hard work versus waste.
Well, BAIR's character Bible explicitly notes that he sets a highly austere, demanding bar. This philosophy does not advocate for laziness, not at all.
Right.
However, it emphasizes that he is, quote, allergic to waste.
Allergic to waste.
Yes, busyness generated simply for the sake of looking occupied is waste. Doesn't
Yeah.
build anything durable.
So relying on effort is essentially relying on a depleting resource.
Exactly.
If my only strategy for finding a job is, manually scanning job boards for 3 hours every single night and writing bespoke cover letters from scratch every time, I am entirely dependent on my own daily energy levels.
And what happens when those levels drop?
Exactly. The moment I get sick or I experience burnout or I simply just need to sleep for 8 hours, all forward momentum stops completely.
That is the defining limitation of effort. It requires continuous manual input every single day. So let's look at BAIR's defining question again.
Okay.
What system should exist so this never requires me again?
How do we apply that?
Well, if we apply that to your daily routine as a job seeker, a system might involve engineering a highly targeted professional portfolio and maybe a governed inbound search alert structure that operates in the background while you sleep. Or, if you're already employed, building a system might mean taking a full week to design an automated workflow, maybe utilizing a specific AI prompt sequence that reduces this recurring 4-hour weekly reporting task into a 15-minute review process.
It's the difference between relying on a bucket and relying on a pipeline.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, think about it. If I need water at my house, carrying a bucket back and forth to the river every single day is undeniably hard work.
It's exhausting.
Right. I will sweat, I'll build muscle, and to anyone watching me, I will look incredibly busy and dedicated.
Employee of the month.
Exactly. But the moment I stop walking, I have no water. Now, if I spend a month ignoring the bucket to build a pipeline, I might not look as busy on a daily basis. The construction is difficult, it's complex, but once it's finished, the water just flows continuously without my physical exertion. I have created an asset.
That pipeline analogy perfectly encapsulates the transition from effort to infrastructure. Carrying buckets is exertion, Building the pipeline is engineering.
Oh, yeah.
And this aligns seamlessly with BAIR's ultimate operational catchphrase,
Yeah.
which actually serves as the sign-off for his communications.
Right, I saw that. Build assets, build systems, build inevitability.
Build inevitability. I want to really focus on that final word, inevitability.
Not build a chance.
Right, not build a probability.
Mhm.
The goal is to make your success an unavoidable outcome.
Because hope is not a strategy.
Exactly. The logic there is rooted right in that axiom. You cannot hope to be selected from a pile of 500 resumes. You just can't.
It's a lottery ticket.
Yes. Instead, you build your skills, which the internal documents categorize as your intelligence. You build your network and your public portfolio, which is your distribution.
Okay.
And by operating under a reliable, repeatable standard, which is your doctrine, your next career advancement stops being this frantic, stressful gamble. It becomes the logical, inevitable consequence of the infrastructure you've put in place.
So the narrative you're presenting to a potential employer shifts drastically. You are no longer marketing yourself as the person willing to carry the most buckets.
No one wants the bucket carrier anymore.
You're presenting yourself as the architect who builds pipelines. You are an asset capable of building other assets.
And that shift in positioning is what makes a candidate stand out in a market saturated with raw effort. You are demonstrating a higher order of operational maturity.
Which brings up a very complex reality, I think.
What's that?
Well, we can sit here and talk about building our own systems and acting as architects, right?
Yeah.
But we are ultimately interacting with massive systems built by other people.
Richard.
We are navigating a landscape where an algorithm is highly likely to be the first entity analyzing our carefully built infrastructure. So how do you build inevitability when a machine is the gatekeeper?
That's the million-dollar question. And to understand that, we have to look under the hood of how Brehon AI actually operates its recruitment platforms.
Just do it.
The source documents reveal that Devidos manages two distinct entry points. There's hire, which serves the employers, and be hired, which serves the job seekers.
Two doors.
Right, two doors. And the philosophy governing these two doors is incredibly rigid.
The playbooks state in no uncertain terms that BAIR views Recruitment AI as an explicitly high-risk deployment.
Yes, high risk. That's the exact terminology.
Which is fascinating because they do not treat artificial intelligence as just a simple sorting tool.
Not at all.
The mandate requires that all algorithmic hiring processes must be executed with strict adherence to international frameworks. We're talking the EU AI Act, mandatory variable bias checking, and non-negotiable human-in-the-loop protocols.
And what really stands out in the documentation is that they don't view these regulatory frameworks as obstacles. A lot of tech companies hate regulation.
Right, they see it as red tape.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the voice spec explicitly has BAIR articulating that, quote, governance isn't the brake, it's the steering.
I love that. It's the steering.
Right. They're operating a highly complex backend, powered by what they identify as the Aerios Evidence Engine, ARIOS.
And all of that is held to a quality threshold they call the Davincia Plus standard.
Exactly.
Let's make sure we clearly define those systems for the listener because the documents rely heavily on them. What exactly is the Aerios engine and what is this Davincia Plus standard?
Okay, so based on the operational context in the playbooks, Aerios serves as the background logging and evidence engine. It is the system that tracks every single variable the AI considers when evaluating a candidate.
Wait, every single variable?
Literally everything.
Uh,
If the algorithm looks at a resume and scores a candidate's project management experience, Aerios records exactly which data points led to that score.
Oh.
Yeah, it logs what weight was applied to those points when the evaluation occurred, all of it.
That's incredibly thorough.
And then you have the Davincia Plus standard, which appears to be their internal quality and confidence threshold. So if the AI's output regarding a candidate doesn't meet that Davincia Plus level of mathematical certainty, the system automatically halts.
It just stops.
It stops, and it flags the profile for manual human review.
The human in the loop.
Exactly.
And this leads directly into what the documents call the reconstruction principle. The exact phrasing here is a core pillar of their doctrine, and I think it's vital. It says, nothing is trusted because it happened. Everything is trusted because it is reconstructible.
That principle is arguably the most critical concept for any professional interacting with modern technology to internalize today.
Unpack that for us. Why is reconstructability so important?
Well, think about older, less sophisticated AI models. You fed data into a black box, and it delivered a binary decision like rejecting a candidate.
Right.
But if you ask the engineers, hey, why was this candidate rejected? They often couldn't tell you. The system simply recognized a statistical pattern that correlated with past rejections.
It's just a black box.
Exactly. BAIR's operational doctrine violently rejects that black box approach.
It sounds super similar to the concept of instant replay in professional sports.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Right. Like as a fan or even as a player, you don't just blindly trust a referee's call simply because they blew the whistle.
No, you want to see the tape.
Exactly. The trust comes from the ability to stop the game, pull up the tape from multiple camera angles, slow the footage down frame by frame, and verify the mechanics of the play.
Yep.
If the governing body cannot reconstruct the sequence of events, they cannot validate the call.
That is highly accurate. If the Arios engine filters out a candidate, there is no black box mystery. There is a meticulously logged, step-by-step audit trail demonstrating precisely which criteria were evaluated.
Frame by frame.
Exactly. It identifies the specific skill gaps that led to the system's conclusion, and it mathematically proves that protected or biased variables were excluded from the calculation.
So the entire decision-making process can be reconstructed from the ground up?
Yes. Yeah.
But let me offer some pushback here, actually.
Go for it.
Because if a candidate uses an AI tool to perfectly optimize their resume keywords, right, which everyone is doing,
Sure.
and then the employer uses an AI applicant tracking system to screen that resume, aren't we essentially just watching two algorithms talk to each other?
Yes, the synthetic loop.
Right. So how does a reconstructible audit trail actually help a human candidate if the entire conversation is basically synthetic?
That synthetic loop is a very, very real danger in ungoverned systems. But BAIR addresses this through a strict data abstraction rule.
Data abstraction.
Yeah. The content guardrails explicitly forbid exposing candidate PII, personally identifiable information, to the raw learning models.
Okay, wait.
The doctrine dictates. Candidate intelligence feeds concepts, not records.
Explain how that practically works in the database. What does it mean to separate a concept from a record?
Okay, so it means that when Davidos analyzes market trends and updates its understanding of what makes a good candidate, it strips away your name, your address, and your specific employment history. It totally abstracts the data.
Okay, so it anonymizes it.
Essentially, yes. The system learns the concept. It learns, for example, that 5 years of agile project management combined with advanced Python scripting correlates strongly with success in this specific sector.
Got it.
It learns the value of the skills without knowing who possesses them.
Oh.
Right. Your specific record remains isolated and protected until a governed, deliberate match is initiated with a human in the loop. The algorithms aren't just matching keywords. They're evaluating verified concepts against reconstructible criteria.
This shifts the perspective entirely for the listener, I think.
It really does.
You shouldn't just be worried about whether an AI is reading your resume. You need to evaluate the company deploying the AI.
Exactly. You should actively seek out employers who treat their hiring algorithms as high-risk labor.
Because if a company is utilizing a cheap, ungoverned AI tool to blindly scan applications without an Aereo-style audit trail, your career could just be derailed by a biased algorithmic hallucination.
And no one at the company would even possess the mechanism to check it. They wouldn't even know it happened.
That is terrifying. But by understanding the reconstruction principle, you actually gain a massive defensive advantage as a candidate.
You do. When you step into an interview or when you engage with a recruiter, you now possess the vocabulary to ask critical questions.
You can literally say, hey, how are your AI screening tools governed?
Yes. Can your system reconstruct the variables it uses to advance candidates?
Wow. Asking a recruiter about their human-in-the-loop protocols instantly separates you from the frantic masses we talked about earlier.
Oh, 100%. It signals that you are an informed, high-level professional who understands the architecture of the modern landscape.
It practically demonstrates that you value systems and standards over mere effort.
Exactly. But understanding how the systems judge you is only the defensive half of the equation.
Right, playing defense.
Yeah. The offensive strategy requires understanding how you can utilize these systems to elevate your own value. And this brings us to a specific phrasing in the technology philosophy section of the Character Bible that, honestly, it completely reorients how we interact with these tools.
You are referring to the distinction between software and labor.
Yes, it is huge.
Okay, let me read the rule from the playbook. It states, as a foundational rule, AI is labor you manage, not software you license.
Let's dissect the implications of that statement, because it is the absolute crux of modern AI literacy.
AI is labor, not software.
Right. Think about it. When you view a tool as merely software, like a spreadsheet application or Microsoft Word,
Hmm.
you are adopting a very static relationship.
Right. Software requires me to manually input data. I have to click the buttons to execute the hard-coded functions.
Exactly. The software doesn't possess agency. It only responds to your direct physical exertion.
A word processor doesn't conceptualize the report for me. It simply formats the letters that I am physically typing onto the page.
You are still doing all the heavy lifting.
Right.
Conversely, when you shift your mindset to view AI as labor, treating it as a digital intern or a junior analyst, your entire operational model changes.
Because you don't click buttons on an intern.
Right. You provide them with context, you assign them parameters, you delegate initial drafts to them, and most importantly, you review and govern their output.
The internal documents explicitly state, let the machine remove drudgery so people do judgment. Tech serve standards, never the reverse.
Tech serves standards.
Okay, I can see how that works perfectly for a software developer or, a data scientist.
Sure.
But let's ground this in the day-to-day reality of someone outside of the tech bubble.
Okay, give me an example.
Suppose I am a supply chain coordinator or a marketing manager. If my current role doesn't involve coding, how do I actually govern this digital labor without getting bogged down in, complex tech red tape?
You manage it the exact same way you would manage a new human hire.
Okay.
Let's say you're that supply chain coordinator, right?
Yeah.
And you have a weekly task of reconciling dozens of vendor shipping reports.
Sounds tedious.
Extremely. Now, the software approach is to open each file, read it, and manually copy the data into a master spreadsheet. Exertion.
Right.
The labor approach involves setting up an AI prompt sequence. You feed the reports to the AI, but this is crucial. You don't just blindly trust the output. You establish a governance protocol.
How does that look in practice?
You instruct the AI to flag any shipping delays over 48 hours and highlight any data formatting anomalies. Then, your job transitions from manual data entry to reviewing the flagged anomalies. You're applying human judgment to the machine's initial pass. You are managing the labor.
Now, the sources mention massive regulatory frameworks in relation to this stuff, like the NIST AI Risk Management Framework and ISO 42001.
Yeah, the heavy compliance stuff.
Right. If I am that supply chain coordinator, do I really need to sit down and read international law to do my job effectively?
No. You do not need to be a compliance lawyer, and you do not need to memorize the statutes. However, you absolutely need to achieve fluency in the concepts those frameworks represent.
Fluency over memorization.
Exactly. Because governance isn't about red tape. As BAIR's doctrine notes, it is the management layer every system requires.
It's like the difference between memorizing the entire state penal code versus simply understanding that you need to wear a seatbelt and stop at red lights.
That's a great analogy.
Yes, fluency.
And BAIR's entire outward-facing strategy is actually designed to facilitate this exact fluency for the public.
Yeah.
Their content architecture includes a specific series titled Governance for Humans.
Governance for humans.
Yeah. The objective is to take these dense, highly technical AI laws and distill them into concise, 60-second literacy pieces written in plain English. They're literally trying to teach the market how to establish that management layer.
Because if you can walk into a performance review or a job interview and actively articulate that mindset, the perception of your value fundamentally changes.
Oh, overnight.
Think about it. If a graphic designer tells an employer, I utilize generative AI to rapidly prototype layout concepts, but I have built a mandatory human-in-the-loop checklist to ensure brand alignment and verify there is no copyright drift in the final assets.
Wow.
Right. That designer is no longer just a pixel pusher.
No, they have positioned themselves as a system builder who actively mitigates corporate risk.
They've demonstrated that they don't just push buttons, they manage digital labor.
They ensure that the technology serves the standard, and not the other way around. I mean, if a company purchases a powerful new AI enterprise tool but lacks the internal standards to govern it, the tool will simply generate chaos at a much faster rate.
Automated chaos.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The candidate who understands governance is the person who brings the standard to the chaos.
That raises a really compelling question about execution, though. If this elevated level of AI literacy and this systemic governance is the required standard of future workplace, how does an organization actually teach it to the public?
It's a huge undertaking.
It is. And more importantly for the listener, how can we replicate that educational path for our own professional growth?
The answer lies in the final section of our source documents, which outlines their mentorship path and their content architecture.
Okay.
It details their strategy for earning trust through the deliberate delivery of value.
Yeah, the operational playbooks outline a very granular, highly disciplined strategy for their presence on platforms like YouTube and LinkedIn.
It's fascinating. It is governed by a strict mathematical ratio,
Yeah.
the 81-55 rule.
Let's break down how they allocate their resources according to that ratio. 80% of their output must be purely focused on delivering value.
Pure value. This includes the AI literacy materials we talked about, career development insights, and what the documents refer to as trust bank deposits.
Trust bank deposit.
Yeah, putting equity into the community. Then 15% is allocated to soft positioning.
Which means demonstrating how their reconstructible methodologies actually solve real-world problems.
Right, showing their work. And then only 5% is permitted to be a direct call to action or a promotional request.
5%. I mean, if you look at the modern digital landscape today, almost every interaction feels like a high-pressure hustle to sell a course or a service or a personal brand.
It's constant selling.
It is. To restrict overt promotion to a mere 5% of your total output requires immense operational discipline.
It really does. The core directive highlighted in the playbook states, trust first, promotion second.
And the tone restrictions governing that output are incredibly severe.
Oh yeah, no clickbait.
The documents explicitly forbid overt selling, clickbait headlines, and any manufactured hype. There is a specific rule that mandates, quote, never argue present reality than the remediation path.
They are not interested in internet debates.
At all.
They are interested in providing architectural solutions.
And you can see that philosophy perfectly encapsulated in BAIR's mandated sign-off. It is arguably the calmest, most unbothered closing statement imaginable.
I love the sign-off.
It just says, when you're ready, let's talk. The BAIR.
When you're ready, that completely removes all artificial urgency.
Right. He isn't chasing the candidate.
No, he is extending an invitation based on the infrastructure he has built.
Mm-hmm.
And the playbooks actually detail the specific formats he uses to deliver this education.
Let's talk about those formats.
Well, they mention the library, which serves as the foundational repository of resources.
Okay.
Then they utilize something called the CQV guide.
Which stands for?
It contextually operates as a candidate qualification and valuation framework. It basically helps individuals self-assess their market readiness.
Self-assessment is huge.
Yeah. And then they map out this progression of seminars, starting from introductory theoretical discussions in what they call the concept hall,
Right.
and scaling all the way up to these definitive, highly polished broadcasts labeled as a global telecast.
So the entire marketing engine is actually disguised as a comprehensive educational engine.
That is exactly what it is.
It reminds me of the dynamic with a truly exceptional university professor.
Oh, how so?
You know, the kind of professor who doesn't mandate that you purchase the expensive textbook they authored just to pass their class.
Right, the ones who don't force you to buy their $200 book.
Exactly. Instead, they focus entirely on delivering incredibly dense, valuable lectures every single week. They invest heavily in your understanding of the material.
Yeah.
And because the quality of the instruction is so high and the trust is so deeply established, you end up seeking out and buying their book anyway.
Just because you recognize the value of their insight.
Exactly.
That dynamic is exactly what A.Ward is engineered to replicate at scale. But we really need to extract the lesson here for the listener.
Yeah, let's bring it back.
How does a candidate, or just a professional looking to advance, utilize this 8155 rule in their own life?
That is the critical application. How do I, as an individual, operate under this ratio?
You audit your own professional output.
Okay.
When you interact on LinkedIn, or when you attend an industry networking event, what is your ratio?
Good question.
Are you providing 80% pure value to your peers in your industry? Are you sharing insights, identifying efficient systems, and helping others govern their workflows?
Or is your output 100% focused on your own immediate needs?
Right. Are you constantly broadcasting, I need a job, please hire me?
Because if your entire professional presence consists solely of asking the market for favors, you are entirely depleting your trust bank without ever making a single deposit.
You are relying on effort and hope.
Which is not a strategy.
Exactly. You are relying on effort and hope rather than building an asset. And the market responds to assets.
It really does.
If you want to accelerate your upskilling, seek out resources, whether it's this deep dive or materials akin to BAIR's Governance for Humans, that prioritize building your trust bank over selling you a quick, effortless fix. And then you have to mirror that behavior. Become a source of governed value within your own network.
There is a concluding phrase in the documents identified as a core tenet across the entire Brehon AI cluster that I think summarizes this progression perfectly.
What is it?
It says, intelligence is the ingredient, governance is the recipe, trust is the meal.
Let's parse that carefully. Intelligence is the ingredient, governance is the recipe, trust is the meal.
Okay, so consider your personal intelligence, your coding skills, your project management experience, your design capabilities as the raw ingredients.
Right, the stuff you bring to the table.
Exactly. Then, having a reliable, reconstructible, and auditable system for how you deploy those skills, your personal governance, is the recipe that makes those raw ingredients consistently usable.
Without the recipe, it's just raw data.
Yes. But the ultimate output, the actual product you are delivering to a potential employer or a client, is trust.
Trust is the meal.
If an organization can trust you to safely manage digital labor, to build scalable systems, and to architect inevitability rather than just exerting raw effort, you transcend the traditional candidate pool.
You essentially become the governed bear of your own career trajectory.
I love that. You remain calm under pressure.
You become highly allergic to waste.
You obsess over standards rather than busyness.
You transition from being a passive participant who is just hoping to be selected to an active system builder whose value is completely undeniable.
Which brings us to a moment of reflection, I think. Let's trace the arc of what we've unpacked today.
It's been quite a journey.
It really has. We started by exploring a woodland lodge to meet a composed, tracksuit-wearing bear, understanding that he serves as a grounded, human-centric interface for the high-stakes reality of algorithmic hiring.
Right.
We realized the necessity of fundamentally rewiring our mindset, moving away from the exhausting trap of endless effort and leaning into the architecture of scalable systems.
We examined the mechanical necessity of governed AI, learning that if an algorithmic decision isn't reconstructible through an audit trail, it is inherently untrustworthy.
Instant replay for AI.
Exactly.
We recognize that artificial intelligence is not merely static software we license, but highly capable labor we must actively learn to manage and govern.
The intern versus the word processor.
Right. And finally, we saw that by leading with education and adhering to a strict ratio of value delivery, we construct the ultimate professional currency, which is trust.
It represents a total structural shift in how you navigate your professional life. It really does.
Which leaves us with a specific practical challenge for you, the listener, to consider long after this deep dive ends.
Let's hear it.
Tomorrow morning, open your calendar. Look closely at your task list for the day. If AI truly is labor you can manage and not just software you click, evaluate your schedule through that lens.
That's a great exercise.
Which of those tasks are you stubbornly holding on to simply because they generate a false sense of busyness?
Are you spending your day carrying buckets back and forth to the river just because the exhaustion makes you feel productive?
Or are you ready to pause, step back, and begin the complex work of building the pipeline?
The tools exist and the frameworks are there.
The choice is whether you want to continue building a career based on endless, frantic effort, or if you are ready to start building inevitability.